Alright, 5th grade, so we're going to work on printmaking today. Printmaking is when you make a printing plate, so something like this, that you layer different pieces of paper on or other things so that the parts of it are raised up and other parts are lowered down. So you can actually put ink on it, so you like roll a brayer on top of it, and then you flip it over, and you rub, and then when you peel it off, it makes an image, and it makes the image as a mirror image. So if you notice, I'm looking at this, all these letters have to be backwards and on the opposite side. So like, if I'm creating something on the right, it's going to end up being on the left at the end. Alright, so making sense. Okay, so what you're going to do from here is we are going to talk about the rule of thirds before you even do any planning. Rule of thirds. Some of you guys know a little bit about this. It's when you take a picture and you try to get everything kind of on those third lines. So if you divide the picture up into thirds, so 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, you try to get all the important information in those third sections to make a more interesting piece of artwork. So an example of this is over here. So if you look here, 2/3 of the picture is sky. So 2/3 is sky. 1/3 is water. It's 1/3. Okay. And you see how there's that actual third line right there that kind of breaks it up. The other thing is sitting right in the middle on that line. You want to have things sit on the lines, okay? Is the actual information about what's going on. It's the lighthouse. So if you want to make this is a more interesting painting or piece of photo than if the lighthouse were just chilling here in the middle, okay? So this is less interesting. This is more interesting. Get it? Got it. Nice. All right, so moving on from there. You were going to pick your place that you want to visit and making your brochure for it. So the place that I want to visit is Dubai, and this is a hotel in Dubai called the Abur Al Arab. We'll go with it. And so this is a really iconic hotel there. I'd really like to go there. It's something that reminds me of Dubai. So if there's something that reminds you, if it's a building or what you might do there or an adventure you might have while you're at this foreign location, go for it. Like if you look at this one, it's Mexico, and there's going to be a lot of fish there and a lot of swimming. And if you look at this one, it's in Orlando, and there's going to be fish again, and you're going to see a lot of palm trees. And here, we're looking at Ocean City, and there's going to be a shark and some sandcastles. And then New York, you're going to see a lot of buildings and some smoke coming off the buildings. So these are all really good examples. So yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your planning together. So this is my planning of how I'm going to make this work. Talking again about the rule of thirds. I'm going to bring that paper back so you can look at both of them. Alright, so if I broke this down into the rule of thirds, I have my most important information in a third of my picture. Do you guys see that? And then I have a third of it, or a little bit less than a third, being sky, and then I have my information about where we're actually going. You do have to include the location. You can't make a brochure advertising something and not actually say where you're advertising for. So yeah, also things to think about before you choose a place or an image to work with. You need to think about the texture that's in there. So when I was looking at my original picture, I loved the fact that there was all of this texture, and I know I can create that really easily with my paper later on by layering little strips of paper on top. Okay, so for starting it, you are going to get 2 sheets of paper. I'm going to be using green and orange today so you can tell the difference. One piece is going to be what I glue everything onto, and the other piece is going to be what I cut out. So, the piece that you're going to glue everything onto, obviously, flip it over, write your name, write your class code. Your class code is 5 and whatever the first letter of your teacher's name is. If you want to be awesome, write the day that you see us, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, so they don't accidentally get mixed together. And then your picture. So, thoughts. Breaking it down into basic shapes. I want to start working on this, but that's not what I have to work with first. I have to think about the sky. So I have all these little lines in the background, so I have to include those first. So if I wanted to cut out those shapes, I'm like, okay, I want to cut out like a wispy shape here, and these papers are the same size, so I can go all the way across and know that it's going to work and it's going to fit perfectly when I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to just do a couple of these. All right. Okay, so I'll cut those out, and that'll wind up being my background. All right, so I have some of these cut out now, some of my cloud shapes. It's really important with when you're making a printing plate that you really make sure everything on the edges is highly glued down and that nothing's really sticking off that paper. Because when you take that piece of paper and you roll ink on top of it, that wet ink is going to try to pull that paper off, so you really can't have any little edges slapping up. So like if I look at this right now, see how it's sticking off a little bit? I really have to make sure that it's really pressed down, even if it means holding it for a couple of seconds, kind of pushing in different areas, or even just flipping the whole piece of paper over and kind of rubbing. Also, to keep those edges down, I recommend using more glue than we typically tell you to. So doing a nice little frame of glue and never being afraid to get close to the edges. If glue spurts out, though, you do need to be aware of that and kind of clean up those edges, because those edges of glue will show up later. So like all these little edges, I gotta clean it up with my finger. Because again, it will show up in your final picture. Normally, it won't show up white, obviously, but you can actually use glue at the end to add details. So you'll keep going, and again, it's just like a collage. You have to work from the background forward. If you don't put a ground line in this, you're not going to have a ground line. So what that means is you have to make sure that you are taking a piece of paper and you are cutting a little piece of paper, and I'm going to cut it on both sides to represent a ground line. Because if you don't have one of these, your whatevers are going to be floating. Now, if you want it to look like it's floating, or it's under the sea, or it's in the sky, or whatever you're doing, that's fine. Obviously, don't put one. But if you don't have one, nothing is going to be grounded in your picture. So you have to do that first. So, got to work in the background first. Next, we're going to talk about lettering and how to do the lettering effectively and to make it look even. So any other questions, let me know, but at this point you should not be working on your main information, just the background.